What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Bet On Us. We're BK and Sab. Sab, what a week 2, man. Let's get right into it. It
Oh my
might hurt a
gosh.
little bit.
I'm
Talk
still
to me.
licking my wounds, man. Still licking my wounds.
Is
We
it
weren't
us or is it what's
what
happening in the NFL
like
right
I
now?
don't want to say we were stellar in week 1 in comparison because we were pretty average. I mean, I went 3-2, you went 2-2-1, or I went 2 or whatever, but this was bad and a lot of people had bad weeks. So I don't feel too bad as far as that. We can only go up from week 2 though.
Dude, tell me
We
about
can
it. It can't get
only
worse than
go
that.
up.
But you know what? You were talking like early on that these the opening weeks of the NFL season are kind of a feeling out process. That the preseason is so different than what it used to be. You don't really get a good gauge of
Yeah.
who's who, what do these teams look like. And I mean, it's crazy because did we see a lot of upsets in week 2? Without a doubt, but it's very hard to tell what's going on. Only certainties that I could pick out are, the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. Yeah, maybe
Yep.
they're getting some help from the refs, but we know who Mahomes is. We know what they're capable of, and we know that the Panthers are the bottom of the barrel.
Oh my
And I
gosh,
think
man.
those are our two certainties right now after week 2.
Yeah, I feel bad for Bryce Young, man. I don't want to spend too much time on the Panthers, but Bryce Young, I mean, he's got benched. They just named Andy Dalton the starter.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to kill the guy's confidence. I mean, it's only week 2, and you did all that. You made that huge trade. You got rid of DJ Moore. You got rid of all those draft picks. I think you got to give this kid a whole nother season to at least look as terrible as he's done in week 1 and 2 to be like, all right, you know what, we're good. But I
Yeah.
just feel for him, man. And then you talk about the Chiefs. I mean, yeah, we could sit here and talk about the refs, which I'd love to do as a Bronco fan, being a hater, if you will, on the Chiefs. But they just find ways to win, whether it be the refs. I mean, that was probably a penalty, but what I was trying to, I
Mm-hmm.
got into it with a bunch of people online. What I'm trying to get at is they get those calls and those situations happen for them all the time. They have them. I saw a stat. Patrick Mahomes has, I don't know the number, but he's got the most interceptions called back on penalty in his career since he entered the league. So I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
we can sit here and cry about the refs, and Chiefs fans that watch us are going to be like, "Oh, give me a break," and I get it, but man, they get the help,
Yeah.
man. They get the help.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that kind of Michael Jordan influence where it's,
Yeah,
he's the best and, where MJ could get maybe a push off or a bit of a travel that wouldn't get called. I think you kind of see a little bit of that with the Chiefs and Mahomes,
right.
but frankly, they deserve it. I mean, they're
Yeah,
the top dog and they
yeah,
will be so until they get knocked off. So,
yeah, and that's with Travis
uh,
Kelce looking like an absolute
he's like he's
bum.
about to retire.
I
Yeah.
mean, physical looks, and on the field. I mean, holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
bad.
think he's nearing the end of the career, but they'll just reload. And I mean,
Yep.
they're a great team. You gotta give
Hmm.
credit where credit's due.
For sure.
But maybe before we get into our NFL pick'em, which was just a debacle, and at least for me, I know you're not anything to brag about this
I
week,
was
but
bad. I was bad. You were worse. That was pretty much what it was
yeah,
this week.
yeah, and I got a lot of if you look at any of the comments on YouTube, a lot of people calling it out. Fair enough. Had a good
Fine.
week 1, bad week 2. We'll be back. We're gonna do better next time.
Listen,
But
we want that. We want to hear about it. We told you from the start. It's in our header. It's in our description. We act like we're odds makers. We want to be
that's right,
somebody. We want to be people that you know personally or know of and say, "Oh, these guys got picks. Cool. Let's follow them, but let's not put too much on it because I mean, you know what I mean." But
yep,
we are going to have some weeks where we're like we did in week 1 with that Bills pick. We're going to jump on that as much as we can until we hit another big one, which is coming
for
soon.
sure. And
Yeah.
two things, I mean, even people that are just kind of casual listeners or watchers of the show might be able to kind of take when
Mhm.
we go all in, like this week, the only one that I felt like, hey, I think there's some confidence here that we know who the Panthers are. Like I said, we know what Bryce Young has been doing.
Yes.
There's a track record there.
Mhm.
Chargers, not great, but I like the team. They're a lot more capable than the Panthers. That was my quote unquote lock, if you will, this week. I called out the Chargers with just a
Yep.
-5 spread against the Panthers. I thought that was outrageous. I thought that they were such a heavy favorite, much more than -5. So I
Yeah.
was all about that one. And they came out 20-0 quick
Oh,
and ended up winning that game 26-3. So, some of those maybe where, we'll shout him out when we think it's a lock. That was one
For
I
sure.
really did. And the other thing that I just wanted to kind of comment on too with the back and forth, with some of the listeners is when you see a trend in the week, I'll take myself, for instance. It was from Saturday all the way through Sunday night. It was like I couldn't hit water if I fell out of a boat. I don't know what was going on. And I went into Monday night and I said, you know what? I
Uh,
picked the Eagles. I hate the Eagles. I think I love Captain Kirk. I've always
yeah,
been pulling for I think he's a really good quarterback when he's healthy.
me
And
too.
the Falcons got a lot of weapons. And I said, you know what? Leading right into Monday night, I said, I'm going in on the Falcons. And that was my big bet, if you will, for the week. And kind
Nice.
of switched it at the 11th hour. And then that came through. So it was almost like I faded myself where that
Yeah,
I knew it was such a bad weekend. I was
happens
like,
to the best
let
of
me just
us.
let's just flip the script. So
Yep.
just some things, maybe for people that are listening, to say, hey, he's hot or he's not. And
We're
then you
not.
can almost kind of bet against us.
Yep, we can be fade gods too. We talked about that at the first show. If you want us to be fade gods, we'll be fade gods. It is what it is. We're here for y'all, no matter
Yeah,
what.
that's right. So before we get into the picks of the week and the NFL slate, Sab,
Yeah.
what were your props or your specials this week and how'd you do?
So with the props, we hit one. The two props we did was the Tony, but I'm gonna chalk up the loss to something. We'll start with the good news. We'll
Okay.
start with Tony Pollard hitting over 50.5 rushing yards. He ended up with like I think close to 70. That one was nice. He kept getting fed the ball, which I think they're gonna do a lot because Will Levis is a disaster. I mean, he's made some terrible, terrible turnovers in the first 2 weeks. He's actually cost them the game both times. They've lost by a touchdown each week, and he gave away basically 14 points and with his terrible decision making. So they're going to lean on that running game. So Pollard's going to be one to look at. That line went to 53.5 by game time, and I think it ended at 54.5, so which was nice to see. The one we missed on the prop wise was Rashad White. Rashad White left the game. I believe he missed maybe a quarter and a half, maybe 2 quarters. So that didn't help us, obviously. He only had one catch. He was slated for over 3.5. Obviously, that didn't hit. First time in like 5 out of 6 games he hit. What are you going to do? Trends go away sometimes. And the Rams, the Cardinals came out just
Oof.
firing. Marvin Harrison looked amazing. Finally, he's on my fantasy team in our big league. He finally woke up, obviously, after a terrible week one. Cooper Kupp going out now. He's going to be out several weeks. You got Puka Nakua on IR. I mean, this is
Mm.
tough, man. This is a tough sledding for me and my Super Bowl pick going against the
Yeah.
Chiefs. I mean, we could pretty much count them out at 0-2 with these injuries. Um, it's going to be tough. And then the
Yep.
other one was your Cowboys that just
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
they didn't show up. I mean, are the Saints this good? I just refuse to believe that Derek Carr is just rejuvenated after a terrible year last year with New Orleans, and now all of a sudden
Yep.
Clint Kubiak though. Clint Kubiak, I got to give a shout out to Kubes, Gary Kubiak's son, who is a product of a lot of Bronco offensive coordinators and coaches in the past, so he knows what he's doing as far as offense goes. He's got the pedigree, so maybe that's
Hmm.
what they were missing was the play calling. And so far, they've scored on all 14 possessions they've had in week one and two.
Incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. I mean, is this
Yeah,
Saints offense for real? And yeah, Derek Carr looking just MVP like. And
yeah,
then Alvin Kamara, that's someone that you think, hey, is he hitting that wall? He's getting a little bit older. And I mean, against the Cowboys defense, he was just running away from people and
yeah.
they couldn't catch him. Crazy.
I just don't get it. I mean, the Cowboys looked great on defense in week one. Obviously, the Browns didn't look any better in their game against the Jags. They did squeak one out, but I just don't get it. I mean, they look so good one week, but again, you probably totally get it. You're totally used to this, looking like
Hmm.
amazing, looking like Tarzan, playing like Jane, from week
Yep.
to week. And it's just unbelievable what happens. But that's the
So
beauty of the
frustrating.
NFL too. Teams can look so terrible or so great one week and come back the next week and look totally different. It's all about how they prepare. It's all about how they practice. And another thing we'll get into in a minute is about the lack of practices and the lack of preseason games, and the lack of reps these guys are getting before, and why the NFL right now is lowest passing touchdowns and yards it's had in I think over 10 years. It's
Hmm.
been it's been rough. It's been a rough time for offenses so far.
Yeah, and I think that's a kind of a thing is, early in the season, it's so hard to make a judgment And the Cowboys after week one, I'm sitting there trying not to get too excited, saying, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is a Super Bowl caliber defense." After week two, you're like, these guys don't even belong in the conversation. So then you kind of come back to middle of like, what are they? Are they good? Are they bad?
Yeah.
It's tough to tell at this point in the season. And so going back to, again, the name of the show, Bet on Us, it's really hard to kind of make some of these judgments so early because you're seeing such kind of polar opposites. Again, aside from maybe your Chiefs or your Panthers,
Yep.
that maybe kind of have a little more certainty around which way you want to lean.
Yeah.
So when you see things like that, my takeaway lots of times is look at the underdog, because I don't think the odds makers out there really, can make a firm judgment when
Yeah.
they're looking at things that are just so whipsawing back and forth. So with that said, that's where sometimes I like to say, hey, maybe look at the underdog there because it may not be priced right,
Mm-hmm.
when there's not that much data yet, for
All
us to
right.
really kind of digest.
They're the odds makers are doing the feel out as well, and I love
Exactly.
saying that because weeks 1 through the first quarter of the season, most teams, unless you're like the Chiefs, are
Mm-hmm.
feeling it out, and a lot of the reason is, and we'll just get into it, is the lack of reps in practice and the lack of reps in preseason. I think it was maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago, the NFL put a rule in where you can only have certain amount of padded practices. These guys are, yes, they're NFL players. They're the, gladiators of the sports world. They know how to take hits. They can take hits. But when you don't take a hit for almost 7, 8 months, and your first hit is week 1 in a game, full speed, your body's not going to react in time like it should if it was in preseason mode or if it was in practice mode. I know they say, well, you don't want to get guys hurt, you want them to be available for the regular season, but the fact is if you play these guys in the preseason 3 quarters or a half, all of your starters, and you get those reps and you make those hits and you get those bumps and bruises, then you heal and your body is getting quote unquote used to it. No one can get used to an NFL game. It's just it's amazing, it's insane how these guys hit each other. But I
Yep.
just think the lack of preseason is why we're seeing such bad offenses. Like Jalen Hurts played, I think two drives in the preseason. They look out of sorts most of the time.
Yep.
Last night, even in week 2, and then you had, I won't even get started on my Broncos. We're not even going to talk about them. But like teams like that, or teams like the Panthers, Bryce Young didn't even play that much. It's just like they have to just look at it from a whole. Yeah, if a guy gets hurt in preseason, obviously that sucks. That's terrible. But it's not any worse than going out there week 1 and him getting hurt, like Puka Nakua, Cooper Kupp,
Exactly.
Debo Samuel, AJ Brown.
Exactly
All these
right.
guys are out. And it's Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah, broken fibula. That's going to happen if it's going to happen. But a lot of this stuff, if you guys are out there playing and they're having these reps, these injuries are just not going to happen as often.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's kind of, again, that you got to find a balance. You talk about the front office and the coaches, and these guys are just getting paid such obscene amounts of money. Their
That's
health
of
seems to have taken the precedent
course.
over the finished product of, do we have a winning team? And I think that's kind of what you're saying, seeing to your point of, even going into last night's game, Falcons, Eagles, they're talking about managing, Saquon's time, that
Mm-hmm.
we
Of
want Saquon here for the playoffs, not just
course.
for the regular season. The emphasis is going to be on production in the playoffs. And you saw that. I mean, they came out, he was just getting 9, 10 yards of carry, just running through the Falcons. And then all of a sudden, they just kind of were like, all right, enough of Saquon. Let's switch to the pass game. They started to lose control of that
Yep.
game. The Falcons come back. And then obviously going back to Saquon, kind of really lost him the game at the end there on just a very easy catch to seal the deal. But yeah, I think it's just like you see it in baseball with the pitch counts. You see it in NBA, with the, guys getting rest days that they take. And it's just such a different game. So
It
we'll
is.
see. Is the emphasis on winning now or health? It,
Yeah.
it's it's a tricky one. So I
Well, and it's
think
like you
that's where,
said.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's like you said with them putting all the money into these guys. They have to think about this stuff. Okay, we can't have him out in the preseason because we're selling tickets week 1, week 2, and home
Mm-hmm.
opener for Saquon, and we can't play him in the preseason and have him not be out there. So I do understand that. I just think that you're making it worse on yourself as a team because then these hits are coming from guys that are starting defensive tackles, starting defensive linemen, starting corners, starting safeties that are just trying to take people's heads off every week, and they're getting hit
Mm-hmm.
week 1. Like Debo Samuel. I talked with my buddy Patrick. huge 49ers fan. Shout out to him and his podcast. Check him out. Politicking, by the way. That's a little plug for my boy there. He he says it. I tell him all the time. Deebo Samuel is the guy that'll have 4 guys on him, and he'll be trying his best to get that extra half a yard when it's 3rd and 8, and you're about to punt anyway, and you're 6 yards back from the first down. I understand these guys are wired differently. They want to get these yards, but you got to protect your body, and Deebo does not do that, and that's why he's hurt every
Yep.
week, every year.
Yeah.
But
That's why
that's
he's so
where,
good too.
and that's also why he's so good. Yeah, so you got to just, like you said, find the balance, and we obviously aren't experts on that, but
Mhm.
it doesn't seem like they are either with all these injuries
No,
happening.
not
So
at all. Yeah. Yeah, it's
it's a
something
violent
else.
game. It's a violent
Oh
game.
yeah, that's football, and that's some of the
Yep.
excitement of it is just how much parity there is and
Yeah.
unpredictability. But let's, we got to hold ourselves accountable. Let's go back to kind of going into week 2, what our outlook was. I know this
Yeah.
was a tricky one for us, but just want to keep it real with everybody. So we'll start with my specials. Again, the one that I picked, kind of a quote unquote lock, Chargers -5 against the Panthers. That
Yeah.
was a victory. Unfortunately, I was 1 for 4 on my special picks. I had, switching gears, I had the Mets Saturday night, Severino on the hill against the Phillies, huge game. They were up 4-0. That looked like I had that in the bag. And then they collapse. And again, we see Edwin Diaz come in the 9th inning and just blow the lead, blow the save. They lost that one to the Phillies. Now, granted, since then, now Mets are playing the Nationals, looking good. That NL East, NL wild card is really heating up with the Mets and Braves.
Right there for him.
So,
right there for him.
yeah. And we're going to finish, you got the Phillies and the Braves. That's going to be an exciting one. So baseball coming in. This is that final push that gets so much fun. Then, again, kind of switching gears, if we look at college football on Saturday, one of the picks I had was FSU to cover what was a -6 spread against Memphis. I thought that they, had a couple off weeks there and would really rebound. And then they go and they lose to Memphis, which was just crazy. And what really bothered me is then their head coach comes out and says, let's see you open up against 3 powerhouse teams.
Yeah.
Like,
I just
never really saw Memphis as a powerhouse team in the
I'll have what he's
NCAA.
having. Like that's just what are you talking about? Not to mention
Yeah.
they play in the Cupcake ACC anyway, which they're I don't know. I don't know what he's on, but it's just like last year when they filed a lawsuit because they didn't get into the college football playoff. I'm just pretty sure FSU just is in their own little world down there and think that they're just living on a different planet up in
Yeah.
Tallahassee. It's
But I
just
mean, just a crazy story. I mean, you talk about coming off an undefeated season, going into the season ranked in the top 10, and the first team ever to be ranked in the top 10 and start 0-3. It's just miserable.
yeah.
And then the last one, again, unfortunately, another losing effort by myself. I thought that Lamar could have over 50 yards rushing. That was that over-under this
That game
past
was
week.
ridiculous.
Yeah, kind of a crazy game, and he didn't run the ball much, and went from over 100 yards week 1 to I think he finished with maybe 20 yards rushing this past week. So
Yeah.
again, you've seen just the pendulum swing, just so much, just kind of one direction than the next. So those were my
what I
special
want to
picks of the week, one for 4.
yeah. Just
I'll
to
hand it
touch
over to you,
on.
Seb.
No, you're good. Yeah, we got a little delay here, but he's still on a cruise. I mean, you could tell by the shirt. The guy's just, just killing that shirt. Is owning it.
Yes, and we are,
Af-
folks. We are pushing the best of Wi-Fi here. I'm in Canada,
yeah.
Sab's in Florida.
Yeah. I don't
We're
even know if
crushing
this
the
is
East
legal.
Coast.
Is this legal? Like, are we able to do this? Is this all right? But yeah, we're pushing it. We're here for you. But just going back to Lamar, and I always had a hot take on Lamar, maybe a little too harsh, if you will. I always said if Lamar couldn't run, he'd be selling cell phones for a living. I don't
Yeah, it's harsh.
get why he gets a pass on these kind of games when a guy like Josh Allen, if he goes out there and stinks it up, it's just headline news every day.
Mm-hmm.
Last year to me, if you look at the numbers, other than rushing, Brock Purdy, Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, all guys that were either the 1 or the 2 seed with their teams and had better stats than Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson got the MVP. Yes, I understand the rushing aspect, and he is an amazing athlete. Don't get me wrong. As far as the quarterback goes, he is as average as it gets when it comes to throwing in the pocket, throwing deep balls, or throwing, period. I just don't get why he gets the pass, and I don't like I mean, the Ravens are 0-2, and that's they started against the Chiefs Thursday night. No one really if he won that game, be like, wow, that's an amazing win, just like the Lions did it last year. But the
Hmm.
Raiders at home, your home opener, I can't lie, I didn't watch the whole game, but it was 6-3 for a long time.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then it kind of took off at the end and fourth, like a lot of NFL games do. And Gardner Minshew outplayed Lamar Jackson. I just think that the Ravens, uh, uh, Lamar himself gets a pass on this stuff. Not for me, but you compare him to the guys like Josh Allen. Yes, he's a 2-time MVP. Should he be? I don't know. The first one, absolutely. Last year, to me, was questionable. I would have given it to Dak. I would have given it to Josh. I would have given it to CMC, and I would have given it to Purdy. I think the hype train is crazy for Lamar, and I know you're a big Lamar fan, but to me, it's just I think he's a second tier when it comes to quarterbacking and throwing, and I think he's got to be more consistent with that, or they're not going to make the playoffs, much less make it to where
Yep.
they think they can be in the AFC title game or in the Super Bowl, because you have no shot against the Chiefs. Yeah, they
Yeah.
week
And
one it was
just
close, but
and just to hop in there, Sab, I think, yeah, some of Lamar, and again, I'm a fan. I wouldn't say that I'm a
yeah,
huge fan of Lamar. I think some of it's the flair, a bit of the Michael Vick experience
he's an
of
unbelievable athlete. Yeah,
just the highlights he can churn out are just
yeah,
outrageous, and they kind of stick in your memory when you get to
yeah,
see them. But it is wild, you talk about the MVPs that he's had, but then you start to look at whenever you hear any commentators have a conversation of the elite quarterbacks,
yep.
guys that are of that untouchable tier. You hear Mahomes, you hear Josh Allen, you hear Burrow. And then maybe Purdy kind of gets sprinkled in there. I don't think I've ever really heard Lamar thrown in that conversation of elite top tier quarterback. Yet he gets the MVPs, like you said.
Tom
So I
Brady
think
did.
it's
So I guess that was enough for when Tom Brady did it. He said he loved what Lamar was doing, so everyone was like, "Huh." I mean,
yeah.
if the
I
goat
think
talks, everybody listens.
in
But
all due respect, I am a big Brady fan, but I think he's kind of finding his footing as a commentator and
oh,
a personality, and
it's rough.
maybe he's
It's
throwing out some
rough,
bold
man. It's
claims.
rough. It's rough. I mean, let's. You can't be good at everything, Tom. Okay, you can't have it all, man. I mean, you have
Yeah.
$350 million, but I'd rather listen to nails on a chalkboard than listen to Tom Brady call a football game. It was
Yeah,
bad,
maybe
man.
he should focus more on his soccer
the,
team.
the awkward silence that was coming out of that game
Love
half the
it.
time, I was like, "What is going?" But hey,
Yes.
he is 2 weeks in. We'll see what
He's the
happens.
GOAT.
But
He's the
he's the
GOAT,
goat. Absolutely.
but he ain't Tony Romo.
I love retired. Right. I love retired Tom Brady more than I love active Tom Brady. I could tell you that much because he was a thorn in my side for everybody's side, always winning. But yeah, the announcement part is a little rough. But I just think
Yeah.
Lamar, if he's gonna, I know it's weird to say it because it's 2-time MVP. He's probably gonna go to the Hall of Fame. I don't know many 2-time MVPs that aren't in the Hall of Fame. So it's
Hmm.
like but to win a Super Bowl and to beat the guys like Mahomes, to beat the Josh Allens, I don't think he's beaten Josh Allen in the playoffs. He only played once, but I don't think he's beaten him. I don't think he's ever played Burrow in the playoffs, but he plays him twice in his division. He's gonna have to just. You can't have these clunker games. I mean, you
Yeah.
gotta make a throw, man. You gotta make a throw one of these
Yeah.
days, and show me something, a clutch throw. Show me a clutch throw one time, please. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I ask.
It's such a strange definition of who he is, but I think most people will agree he's one of the best players in the NFL. But most
Absolutely.
people would not call him one of the best quarterbacks.
No,
It's
well,
it's
yeah.
like,
I
but
mean,
that's your position.
right,
It's not
right.
like you're Tim Tebow here. Like you are the quarterback.
Yeah,
So it is odd.
yeah. It's weird, but
Yeah. But so one thing that we have been, I know it's very early in the season, but one thing I think catching some attention is our early calls on Thursday night. Here we are recording on Tuesday. We got a
yes,
couple days out before we get our
yes.
appetizer to
Uh
the
huh.
weekend slate. Thursday night, we got the Jets playing the Patriots. I've got some comments on the game. I'll tell you my pick, but I want to hand it to you, Sab. Tell the fans what you got.
So I'm going to be brutally honest. I looked at the line probably Sunday, and I haven't looked at it since. What is the line right now?
It
I
is
know
so
who
the
I'm picking.
Jets are minus 6.5.
Okay, so it was okay. So it's 6.5. So it was 6 on Sunday. I thought 6.5 to me. The Patriots have played some good ball week 1 and 2. I mean,
Mhm.
they almost beat the Seahawks. They probably should have beat the Seahawks. They kind of gave it away. Beat the Bengals, who are 0 and 2. I feel like the Bengals start 0 and 2 every season. With Joe Burrow,
Yeah,
at least I guess they said it's 3 out of the last 4 years they've started 0 and 2, which is interesting.
crazy.
They have a Super Bowl run in there too, so that obviously doesn't mean anything. It's not how you finish. It's not how you start. It's how you finish. I think this is the game where we go, oh, the Jets might actually do some damage. Now, the Patriots are the
Hmm.
Patriots. They're going to be tough. They're going to play tough defense. They're not going to get blown out. But I like the Jets. I like the Jets at home. The home opener. Let's hope the home opener doesn't go the way it did last year for Rodgers, obviously, because no one wants to see that. You might not like Rodgers off the field, but he's an amazing quarterback. He does the opposite of what Lamar does. He makes all the throws.
Yeah.
I like the Jets 10 plus in this game. I think they're gonna
Wow.
yeah, I think they're gonna
Woo.
pound the football. I think they're gonna pound Brees Hall like they've been doing, and I really think Rodgers. This is the coming out part. I think you're gonna hear Friday morning. We're gonna talk. I don't know if how much I'm gonna bet it. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I think Friday morning you're gonna hear on ESPN on First Take, like they always do with the overreactions, is can the Jets win the Super Bowl? That's what you're gonna hear Friday morning.
Okay. So
Give me
I'm
the
going to
Jets
give you my
by a
my
lot.
take on things. Some agreement here, but
Yeah.
if I was putting my money up there, a little bit different. I think that the Jets do come out winners on Thursday night. I think that they can beat the Patriots. That line -6.5, I don't think it's worth it. I'm not of your take here that they're going to blow them out by 10 plus points.
I get it.
People want to take that stance, go for it. To me, that is a risky play.
Feeling crazy.
I think that the Jets could win, but I think it's 50-50 if they win by 2-3 points or if they get that 10 plus you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Where I feel more confident, again, because I don't think it's worth it to say, hey, the Jets are going to win and you win, whatever, 50
Right.
bucks on a 100 bet. Not a fan of that play. What I really liked, what caught my attention, the over-under on Aaron Rodgers passing yards. Right now, it's 213. Okay. I think that Rodgers is one of those guys, like a Dak, like a Brady, that they want to throw the ball almost every play, and that the quote unquote run game for the team oftentimes can be a passing game where they're just doing simple check downs, screen plays, short, 5-yard slants, ins and outs, often involving the running back. A lot of that sort of action that doesn't have to always be the deep ball, but they can still control the clock even with Rodgers stepping back and throwing the ball.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I think at 213, I really like that. I'm taking the over on Aaron Rodgers to pass more than 213 yards Thursday night against the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting to see that in the 250 category.
Well,
so
yeah.
at 213, I was excited about that, and that's definitely what I'm riding with on Thursday.
That's got to be the lowest over/under for Aaron Rodgers ever. Maybe I don't know how it was the previous 2 weeks, but if you in his Green Bay days, if you said he would have an over/under of 213, you'd put your mortgage payment on it. And for years, your yearly, maybe your yearly payment, but I think, well, we're in week 3, right? We're starting week 3. Rodgers has had the reps. He's had the 2 games now. Now might be time to start
This is my
slinging
point.
it. So I think you might be right.
He's really starting to kind of find himself. Like you mentioned, not a ton of preseason reps. This is Aaron Rodgers, guys. Now he's got 2 full weeks under his belt. He knows what his team's capable of. I think he's going to go from, Breece Hall is great. We can rely on some of the run. I think he's going to start to say, this is my team. And he's going to do that with his arm. So I think 213 is easy for him to cover.
Should be good. Yeah, you would think. And I know I said they're going to lean heavily on Breece Hall, but that's going to be every week. But like and it's prime time. Aaron Rodgers wants he acts like he doesn't want to be talked about, but he loves being talked about, and he wants to be talked about in a good light. And that's what's going to happen, I think, after Thursday night. Is he's going to be on the Amazon Prime post game at the podium or whatever you want to say, talking to those guys and yucking it up about his 275 yards and 2 touchdown night and a 27-10 win. So I think I had to make sure we were over 10 there, because I did say earlier.
Exactly. So we're both definitely on the Jets bandwagon this Thursday.
For sure.
Kind of just in different lanes, if you will.
But
any closing thoughts here, Sab, and we'll kind of wrap up this recap.
yeah, just with it being week 3 and those reps of the teams that are healthy, uh, have come and gone now. I think you're going to see the Joe Burrows and the Bengals, those kind of teams kind of get it going. Maybe Lamar and the Ravens, and the teams that are struggling out of the gate. I'd say the Rams if they weren't so beat up. But now it's go time. There's no more excuses. There's no more excuses of the reps. There's of lack of reps or lack of preseason play. It's time to go. And if you start 0-3, you got the Rams, the Ravens, the Bengals, big teams that could start 0-3. You start 0-3, you are not making the playoffs more than likely. And
Mm-hmm.
it's go time. It's really a must-win week for those teams. My Broncos are 0-2, but we expected that.
Yeah.
Bo Nix has got 3 more weeks for me to not be scared. That is my
Yeah.
last thought. I said three more weeks for me not to be freaking out. Or do I shift the blame to Sean Payton? Because that's what we like to do. These
Yeah.
rookies. I mean,
Typical Broncos fans.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. You throw Caleb, of course. You throw Caleb Williams in there, Jaden Daniels. I mean, none of them have gotten off to great starts, but now we're in week 3. See what these guys can do, man. Throw the ball downfield. Get these guys chucking. And how, for the love of God, block for them. All 3 of them
Yes.
have been on their butts all game long each week. Throw a block or 2, would you?
Yes.
Please.
Yep. Yeah, I hear you. And I think my closing thoughts would say, kind of similar. After 2 weeks, we've seen some things here. Big picture, what's my take? I like underdogs right now. I think, some of these teams that have kind of appeared to be something than what they are, are distorting some of the lines here. So I think this is a chance to look at underdogs and they can surprise people, just like we saw this past week.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, which I alluded to a little bit with my Aaron Rodgers over a whopping 213 yards, is I think we're going to get back quickly to this pass-happy league that we've seen for the past decade.
I sure hope
think
so.
These first 2 weeks are a bit of a misnomer. So I think that a lot of those over-unders, particularly on passing yards, are distorted. And I think this is a chance to look at a lot of those and say, how the heck could it be so low?
Take advantage.
I think they'll start, getting the over quickly, and then you'll see those kind of come back to homeostasis of where they normally are.
Right.
So it might be something to keep an eye on as well.
For sure, man. I agree. I need touchdowns. We love fantasy. We love playing fantasy football. We love betting overs. I've always said it. Life is too short to bet unders. Throw the ball. Throw the ball. Let's do it. Let's get this back to where it should be.
And I think we'll get there real quick. So, Again, everybody, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Bet On Us. This was our recap of week 2 with a little teaser for Thursday night. Again, subscribe, leave us a review. We love the banter back and forth, even if it's not all positive.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you Saturday, with our picks for the upcoming week. But until then, take it easy.